First game I ever saw was the first game of the season after promotion in '71. So it was a 71-72 season.
You got me.
It was Southampton.
Oh yeah.
At home, 3-1.
Yeah.
My dad had bought season tickets first time because I'd only ever been to one game when I stayed with my auntie and uncle in Doncaster, and they took me to a Friday night match, and it was Doncaster over 7, Brentford 0, and I thought all games were going to be like that, you know. And I followed the United games on radio, and I think we won 5-1 against Cardiff.
That was in promotion
in the promotion year.
Yeah.
And then didn't we lose after that? And anyway, we get promoted, but I was only 11, so I wasn't allowed to go to the games until my dad decided that we were all going once we were playing proper teams. And we bought he bought season tickets in the Bramall Lane stand, and they were £12 each for the season.
For the season,
yeah, £36 for 3 people.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and we sat behind Bramall Lane goal, and United won 3-1. And then the second game was the Tuesday night, and we were home to Leeds, and we beat them 3-0. And it was the loudest thing I have ever heard in my life. I couldn't believe the noise. I actually got a headache. I was 12, and it actually felt a bit intimidating. I wasn't sure if I belonged, but it didn't last long. I was like, once the third one went in, I'm like, can't believe this.
I think we beat Leeds as well in that same year in the League Cup, 1-0 here. I think I got that goal, but we had a great start after getting promotion. We won 8 of the first 10 games. I
remember the back of the Star when we won 1-0 away at Arsenal.
Yeah.
And he said, say it again. Arsenal 0, United 1. And then Man U came and wheels came off a bit, didn't they?
Well, no, 6 minutes to go, 0-0 at Old Trafford, 20,000 locked outside.
Yeah.
And
wow.
And then Bestie got that goal that was forever remembered on Match of the Day every bloody Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a shame. Ted Emsley had him in his pocket all through the game, and then Ted got injured. He didn't want to come off, but he got called off, and Gil Reese went on, left winger playing left back, and of course Bestie gets the goal, and then Gowling got another one in the last minute, so it could have been 0-0.
Yeah.
Who knows? We could have. But we ended up 10th in the league, which was good.
Yeah, I mean, for my first season watching football, it was amazing, really, because all I remember is it's rose-coloured glasses for me. I don't remember losing any games, so I'm sure we did. They wiped out my memory. I mean, it was still a cricket pitch, wasn't it? It was still that huge, big. There was no TC stand then.
No, my first 5 years was playing with just 3 sides. Yeah, the cricket pitch.
Mental, really.
But we had a great squad, and it was a great, just like the one today and the Bassett era and the first, the Wilder era, I suppose. A great team spirit.
Oh, totally.
Great dressing room, as they say.
It's just a shame that it seems to be one of those things where I remember everybody saying at both Sheffield clubs it's yo-yo. They're up, they're down,
absolutely,
they're up, they're down.
Yeah.
But right now it looks looking good for both of them, But Gary, see, I don't buy into that greatest game on the planet when you go to Wembley to win 3rd spot. No thanks. Well, I'll take instant promotion 3 weeks ago and off to Ibiza for a couple of weeks.
I think they should have VAR. I mean, I've always been a supporter of VAR from years and years ago. 30 years ago, I was saying we should have had cameras on the 18-yard line to see if it's inside or outside the box and things like that. They've gone a bit over the top now, but for the championship not to have,
it's crazy, isn't it?
It's the biggest prize, as they say. Lots and lots of money on it, and there's been some dodgy decisions of late in the last 10 games of the season that VAR
would have sorted out. I remember saying the same thing years ago. I didn't understand why they've got cameras in stumps on the cricket.
Yeah.
Why can't they put a tiny camera inside the goal so at least you can tell if it's crossed? I mean, now we don't need that, but 20 years ago, that technology existed. They could easily have done it. It wouldn't have cost a fortune. Because, people do this for security in their houses. It would have been, easy for league teams to put 4 cameras on the pitch. one inside each post or whatever, you know. That would have been at least the beginning of something useful.
The offside bit is the biggest bugbear in it for everybody, you know, the toe,
well,
the chin or whatever it might.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I totally agree. You're either on or you're off, and the spirit of offside is what doesn't count when it all becomes a technicality, because if your elbow is off, are you offside, or it has to be something that you can actually hit the ball with? So it has to be a head or a foot that's offside. So you could actually be like this, and you're onside.
I'm not sure.
I don't think anybody is. That's the problem with it.
I know in racing and perhaps horse racing or the athletics, you know, is it the chest? It's the head, isn't it, or is it the chest? Or, you know, I
don't know. But
anyway,
they'll figure it out. You know,
I think we've spent enough time on VAR.
I think what they really need to do is what they did last week on Sky, which is actually feed it into the stadium while they're doing it. They do it in American football. They've been doing it for decades, where they actually tell you why. They don't, you know, so that we can understand it, and then maybe people will be more forgiving against decisions that they don't understand, or show them on the big screen, because you're not supposed to do that either, but you see it sometimes. Anyway, VAR, it's not really important, is it, to us?
What made Tony so special to you as a young fan growing up?
You have to understand that for all of us, when TC was 12, he was probably in awe of
Jimmy Greaves.
There you go, Jimmy Greaves, you know. And the strange thing is, my first football match was August 71, and my first ever rock concert was October 71, T-Rex at Sheffield City Hall. So this is me finding my what do I want to do in life moment, you know. And I kind of knew at 12, I mean, I was a pretty good footballer, but I knew I don't think I had the stomach for everything you have to do, the training 5 days a week, the being told off, dropped, you know, benched or whatever, you know. Whereas I think when you're in a rock band, you have this impression that you're in charge of your own destiny a bit more. So I was always leaning it, and it just seemed a bit easier than the discipline you need for football. But I used to watch Tony, and as a 12-year-old kid, he was a rock star footballer, because your hair then was a bit like mine now. Shirt out, socks down, when it was legally, you know. I don't even know whether you wore shin pads.
I did later on when the old legs got a bit. Yeah.
But it was, you know, there was a little clique of really cool rock star footballers, and TC was amongst them. There was Frank Worthington, there was Alan Hudson, Rodney Marsh, and they were all socks down, shirts out, you know.
Stanley Bowles.
Stan Bowles, another one, you know. Players that should have all been in the England team at the same time, but didn't get capped enough because they weren't suit and tie enough for Alf or whoever, Ron Greenwood and all that crowd, you know. So it was just watching this kind of enigma on the pitch, you know. He was a free spirit. Obviously, you come out with specific orders from the manager to a point, but I'm sure that once you're halfway down the tunnel, you're going, oh yeah, all right, it's all well and good, but if such and such happens, I'm just going to grab it and go, you know. And that's how you get those magic moments, like, you know, John Motson immortalised forever on Match of the Day with a quality goal from a quality player, you know. I mean, you can't learn that, I don't think you can learn that. I think you're born with it.
You had specific orders, you know, who to pick up, where corners and things, you know. Are you going to be in the wall? What position in the wall and things like that. Are you going to just be not marking anybody at a corner, or just be in the space? And but other than that, yeah, I was. I'd just get out there.
You weren't known for your defensive qualities in that respect,
well,
were you?
I could handle myself.
Yeah, I know you could. But I mean, you weren't going to be running back to stand on the post when you needed more in the middle. If Kalun or whoever, John Flynn heads it out, they need you to do your magic till Woody runs down the wing and pop.
Yeah,
that's what I would. That's. I mean, I don't know anything about football. I'm watching it as a fan, but that's the way I saw it. But it was always. The greatest thing about being the United back then was the fact that we actually had a player of TC's capabilities and quality, because a lot of teams didn't, you know. Like I said, we just mentioned 5 in, you know, Worthington, Bowles and
you had
Rodney
Charlie
Marsh.
George to that.
Yeah, and obviously Best was still just, he was playing as well. But to have your own in Sheffield, it seemed like everybody else, all these other teams were like in London, and they had all the best players, and there's little old Sheffield, and
we were in the top flight.
Yeah,
as well.
we were in the top flight. We got our own. We were for till '76.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was 8 years, 9 years, whatever it was. No, 5 years, sorry.
Yeah.
Until '76. It seemed a lot longer than 5 because we went every game. You know.
Well, it took us 3 years to get back up, which was ridiculous after going down in my first season in '67, '68.
Yeah.
What century was that, by the way?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you just come up from Watford for 30,000 quid, right?
26 and a half.
No, okay, sorry.
No, it was 30,000 quid a week that I was. Oh no, it weren't. No.
Yeah, I bet you wish.
16 quid a week.
And you were living in Dronfield, right?
No. I went in Joe Shaw's old house at Mearsbrook, just a mile and a half up the road.
Oh, right, okay.
Just not, that first 4 years, 12 and 6, pre-decimal, 12 and sixpence a week rent.
Rent, fantastic.
Which is what, 60p I think now.
Yeah.
A week
Holy
rent.
God.
And what I should have done, I should have bought the blooming plate thing when I could have done in '72, because it's worth about 400,000 now.
Holy God.
I could have bought it for $2,000. Yeah. But $2,000 then in 1972 was
a lot of money.
It was a lot of money, yeah.
36 quid for the season tickets. My dad was like, pawning things off to buy them,
Yeah.
But they were good years because it was, there was the highlights for me is obviously the West Ham game, the drubbing of Ipswich 7-0.
Oh, blimey.
That was a winner, And then there was little pockets of strangeness, like Chris Guthrie.
Well,
and John Faulkner, who was this, he looked like the singer from Mungo Jerry, and he was the standing centre half.
Oh, yeah.
And we played Liverpool and beat him 1-0, and he absolutely had Toshak in his back pocket, and he never played a game like that ever again. He was awful.
No,
guy.
He was a bit of a giraffe.
Tony Field,
yeah.
scored an incredibly insane goal, but it's the first time he ever stayed on his feet. I've never seen a guy go down so often. His words make Jack Grealish look like a statue.
He could have gone down a few times in the dressing room, and I tell you, he was a bit of a swine.
Really?
Oh, yes.
See, these are the things we don't know, as people. Yeah.
I think Furphy brought him in just to wind all the boys up.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. But it was a good, there was a good squad, Stuart Scullion, and then when people like Keith Eddy came in, which was a bit later on, 74.
Keith could have played for England if it hadn't have been for, well, I don't know what Bobby Moore perhaps, or whoever was after Bobby. I mean, Keith was a quality player. He was at Watford. He was with me at Watford, and then we signed him. And
we pulled a few from Watford.
Yeah, Scully. Yeah, Scully was as good as George Best. I'm telling you. Yeah.
Gil Reese. Obviously, you and Woody were like,
Well, we had
Simon and Garfunkel on the football.
We had
pitch,
telepathy.
It was amazing, really. It was great to watch. Even when we lost, it was always like, well, it wasn't a hammering. No,
well, people used to get. We had match winners in our team. Jeff Salmons, Billy Dearden, and I always say this to supporters of 50. Well, you got to be 55, 60 to talk to these people that remember us, and the supporters always went home happy whether we won 4-0 or lost 4-0 because they'd seen their favourites, and we'd gone out to win the game. We've always gone out to
the only time I remember us getting battered was Arsenal, and that was that immortal couple of seasons where Alan Ball sat on the ball.
And then I did.
And then a year later you did, to a standing ovation when we beat them, the same scoreline.
Totally.
It was just... you got to understand, as a kid, that's a long time. That year, it seemed like, forever. But to remember it and think...
But it happened, both games happened here. I mean, 5-0 at home, getting beat by anybody is a drubbing.
Yeah.
5-0 at home, Arsenal, right. And Bawley does that, and right in front of me, so I'll give him because we were great mates. And then I'd scored 2 in a year, or it might have been 2 years later, actually, Joe.
Okay.
But I can't remember. But I'd got 2 in the first 20 minutes. We were 5-0 up, and I just thought, here we go then. And I got near him. I had the ball on the floor, sat on it, and as I got up, I actually tripped over the ball, and I nearly gave a blooming goal away. But he said to me in the dressing room afterwards, in the players' lounge, he said, "TC, I'll have another one for you next year when we play at Highbury," and he did. he put his foot on the ball, undone his lace, and done it back up again. And I never got him back for that. And I tell you, he was such a lovely man. I always say, if you're gonna have a, you know, like you say, who would you pick to have an evening with at your house, having a meal? Alan Ball, Bobby Moore.
Yeah.
Just two fantastic blokes. Fantastic people.
Yeah. But it was great for us as kids. Brilliant revenge. You
know? Oh, absolutely.
Never forget things like that, because you see that's the whole thing that we kind of miss now. There's a little bit of it maybe with Man City at the moment, but there isn't much personality anymore. It's all a bit machine-like.
Yeah.
And what we had then was these characters. I remember that goal that Frank Worthington scored for Bolton, where he kind of had his back to the goal and kicked up in the air, turned around and volleyed it in. Those kind of things, they don't happen. You have to be a certain kind of player, but it's beaten out of you, I think, on the Monday to Friday to play it. Everything's got to be played. So too much money involved. So there's no McEnroes in tennis. There's no TCs or Rodney Marshes in football anymore, really. I mean, who was the last one that really was Maradona? I can't really think that there's been. I mean, there's been some great skill with Bergkamp and Messi and
Cantona.
But you know, kung fuing someone in the crowd
Crystal Palace
takes it a little too far, doesn't it?
Crystal Palace, yeah.
But there just is, you know. I mean, it's great to watch. You see Man City, and I saw them the other day when they reached the final of the Champions League, and they just destroyed Madrid.
Apparently, I didn't see it, but my son-in-law, who's a happy hammer, he was telling me this morning that he'd never seen anything like it.
Destroyed him, man. It played out like a testimonial. It was a really weird game, but I honestly think on the night Plymouth would have beaten Madrid because they just stood off. They only went for Grealish, had him on the ground a few times, but they just let Man City play, which is really weird. Anyway,
talking to testimonials, do you remember 1986?
Oh my God,
October here.
So
in front of a 22,000 crowd.
Incredible. The camera was on the wrong side of the ground though. There was a full stand and the camera was in that stand filming the one that was being built.
Yeah.
So that was a bit disappointing from a technical point of view. But I remember it well because I remember I was living down just outside London. I was living in Cobham, which is where Chelsea's set up is these days. And I got wind. This is before internet and cell phones and pretty much all that kind of stuff. And I got wind of the fact that Dennis Waterman's team were playing here. So I'm thinking, oh, hang on a minute, I could get in on this because
peasy.
You've got to remember that in 1986, Def Leppard weren't a popular band in the UK. We were massive in the States, and we'd only sold dribbly amount of records in England. So you had to really know rock music to know who we were. And I don't know how I made inquiries, but somehow I managed to get hold of Dave Coxon. A recommendation, somebody up in Sheffield said, well, he's organising it. So I rang Dave just out of the blue and told him who I was. I said, any chance I could just be on the bench or something? And he went, I don't see why not. Because he knew who I was. I don't know how, but he did. And because there was Dennis Waterman and there was, I think, Paul Heaton from the
comedian
House
in
Martins
goal,
at the time.
Mick Miller.
He looked like Max Wall. Brilliant, isn't he? And I think the guy from Coronation Street. And
yeah.
Oh,
what's
the
his
blonde
name?
guy.
Come on.
Not Curly Watts.
What's his name?
It was Brighton.
Chris Quentin.
Chris Quentin. Yeah. So there was, and I'm thinking, well, okay, if they can, why can't I? You know, United Eye and all that kind of stuff. So he said, yeah, sure. And I guess I don't think he asked you, just told you. But the next thing I know, I'm on my way up there, and I'm in the dressing room. Lo and behold, there's this. Is he coming or is he not coming? Yeah, he's coming. He's in a car. George Best. Yeah. He's got his cheque or whatever.
We had to pay $1,000 for him.
Yeah, you've got to pay.
And we had to have his agent said he wanted to play as well.
Bill McMurdo, is it?
McMurdo, yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll make sure he's here, but I want to play as well.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it was $1,000. Yeah.
And so there I am in the dressing room with all these, and I was totally intimidated because I couldn't just walk into the dressing room and be, all right, lads, who the fuck's that going along here? You know. So I was just kind of sat in the corner, just being all kind of just observing it all, and then lo and behold, there's George Best and there's Archie Gemmell and there's God, I mean, just,
Alan Clark, Billy Bremner, Ryan McFarlane.
Yeah, and Billy Bremner was the first one to come up to me and go, "Are you all right, lad? You all right?" Aye. Because I played with Billy about 2 or 3 times after that at Scunthorpe and in some testimonial stuff, and he was always really good.
Lovely bloke.
Kind of going around, make sure everybody's happy and all this kind of stuff, and thinking, excellent, you know. And there I was on the pitch, and you know, because I've got the video, it's just I've got to have a VHS tape for this when it's done. I remember watching back now because I didn't really remember too much of what happened until I saw Besley pass to me. I went, "Oh, there's one for the grandkids." So I'm like, "What do I do with it?" Give it straight back to him so I can tell the world. I passed to George Best once,
and he got there.
He hit exactly. He hit the bar from about 35 yards.
Oh,
I remember he cracked the most brilliant shot. And I was on the pitch for, I think I just played maybe the second half, can't remember. But Woody smacked one against my leg that I can still feel now. And I went down, I tried to tackle him, and that was the worst mistake I ever made because I ended up going down on my knee, and that was the beginning of the end.
Oh, really?
That's where I did it.
Is that the knee?
Yeah. It caught in the grass, I kept going, and the knee kind of stuck there, so I moved maybe 4 or 5 inches with the knee not going anywhere. And it just ballooned out and I had to come off. And they put me on the bench in the physio room, and they stuck this needle in my knee. And out he came, and he come out like that dentist mouthwash, it's just pink. Yeah. And then they put it in again and did it again. It was only the 3rd time that they got the blood. So that's how much liquid there was in it. Wow. And from that moment onwards,
I had that.
Like you.
That's a terrible.
We share a knee problem.
Yeah, that's.
But it was such a fantastic day for you. That was the most important thing. And that's just my part of the thing. Is like I got to play in your, not just watching. I would have come on to watch, but to actually put the shirt on and play in that, Dennis Waterman's 11, and support you from that point of view.
Yeah, it was great.
Knowing how many people were out there and going, this is great because he deserves this.
80 degrees, 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
October the 5th. There was never weather like that in Sheffield in October. It was summertime. It was absolutely stunning.
It was shining down on me, yeah.
Yeah, it really was, and you fully deserved it.
One of the greatest days of my life, and it got me back on my feet.
Yeah, which is fantastic, which is what testimonials were for. I mean, we all know that it's for all the superstar that you guys were. You were, I mean, I remember reading about the Wimbledon team that beat at Liverpool in the FA Cup. Yeah. They were all on about 850 quid a week.
Yeah.
I mean, it was different days back then. So, everybody know that the testimonial, all the money goes to you minus the expenses. Is like, yes, good. And I'm glad it got you back on your feet. That's such a wonderful thing. And we've been friends ever since. You came over to Dublin. You came over to Dublin, actually, more than once. Not just my 50th. Do you remember a time where I flew you into playing a 5-a-side competition and you weren't really sure, and I said Johnny Giles was playing, and he went, "I'm in."
Yeah, I did, yeah.
And we won, and you skinned him.
Yeah, but it was indoor.
It was indoors.
It was upstairs, indoor, in a very small. It weren't much bigger than this bloody.
It was like a little gymnasium with some seats in it. And there was
some crowding, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was crowd, and there was 4 teams.
And that's when I met Gary Kemp, or the other Kemp.
Yeah,
Spandau Ballet were there.
Spandau were there.
And I kept in touch with the drummer.
Oh, John Keeble.
John Keeble.
Yeah.
Because he only lived in Hampstead, just up the road from where my mum came.
Well, we were all living in Dublin at the time, and there was Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Def Leppard, and Spandau Ballet, and we used to go out every night to these clubs. I mean, you have 3 totally different forms of music, but when you're like Englishmen abroad, it's like that just goes away, and then you just bottle of champagne, bottle of beer or whatever. We're having the best fun ever. And Dermot Morgan, who was the guy that played Father Ted in the comedy season, he's the guy that organised this.
Was he?
And he's the guy that had Johnny Giles on his team. And it was a knockout round, and lo and behold, we got to the final against his team. Yeah. And we won, and we got a tin of baked beans as a prize.
Was it?
Yeah.
I've probably still got mine. I keep all my stuff.
And then we were back in the hotel, and we were in the bar till the sun came up, and then you staggered off to the plane.
That was the days. That was when I could drink. Yeah.
Good days though. I mean, it was fun. It was a great life. And then you surprised me on my 50th birthday.
Yeah.
You and Andy Dakin. You walked through my door in Ireland. I'm like, my chin hit the ground. I'm like, what the hell are you doing here?
Well, when we see on the telly, we become a little bit of a. We have bets since COVID. Something to do, so I've never been a betting man, but we have a 10p each way. It only costs us £2 each, so we have the racing on in the afternoons. And when Leopardstown comes on, I think, Joe's up there somewhere.
Yeah. That's us. One day they'll change the spelling of that place. I hope to Leppard with 2 P's and no O in it. You know. Oh, that was great when you came for my 50th birthday. I couldn't believe it. You know, I mean, I had a feeling my wife had organised something, and I figured Sav would be there. You know, but I was not expecting him. So thank you for.
That's all right.
Because he goes all the way back to 1971, and here we are in 2023.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
I know.
Give us a hug.
Good luck to you, boy.
Thank you.
A little present from us to you, the 1992 promotion shirt.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you, pal.
Cheers, mate.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Look at that.